what else are you going to do? How are you going to utilize civic infrastructure that's been underutilized maybe for a couple of decades? How do you rehabituate whole neighborhoods that were run over by economic waves from global economic waves from past decades, right? Well, I think the natural answer is, oh, startup businesses. You rebuild those things 2 or 3 or 10 people at a time, right? And they've seen the value in that, and they actively work it.
But the gig to me is like, well, people would ask me, how does it feel to be the mayor of the city that has the fastest internet speed in the country? And my response would be, well, I feel like I'm the mayor of the first city to have fire.
Right, because at the time, the network was starting to roll out. EPB had plans for it. And in fact, when the American Reinvestment, I'm not good with acronyms, but when all the money came from the feds, that's why EPB got an outsized share of money for it, is because they already had a plan in place.
I tell the story as though we had the smart grid all built and then went, oh man, let's add. We were thinking about them both at the same time. People soon forgot that it really was an electric power project to begin with. There's a real cost to power interruptions. It's an inconvenience for you and me as residential customers, but when you think about a manufacturing facility, anyone who's trying to do business, you can estimate that our community loses about $100 million a year, and that we've cut the length of power outages in Chattanooga by about half. So once you have the network in place, you can also add the electronics to it that allow you to offer TV service, phone service, and very fast internet service. We also knew that we could help pay back the infrastructure. It wasn't until a little bit later that it occurred to us, why not just open it up and make it available to everybody and see what people can do with it? And it's working out beautifully.
Do we just build that smart grid with the implements that we have, or do we build for the future? And so we chose not to actually go head to head and compete with Comcast and the others. We gave them the opportunity first. I personally talked to their representatives that came to see me and said, we don't think you should do it. And I said, well, you do it and we'll piggyback on your fiber system. And they said, we can't afford to. Well, they're doing it in some parts of the country, but they wouldn't do it here. So we did it here, and consequently, we have established Chattanooga as a leader in this new type of technology and this new type of infrastructure.
And we discovered very quickly that the first thing we were going to have to do is persuade people that we actually had it. As we started to interact with people outside of Chattanooga, over and over again, we would tell them what we had, and they'd say, no, you don't. We'd send them the tech specs, and they still weren't persuaded. It just didn't make any sense that, you know, this southeastern mid-sized city, not Silicon Valley, not super well-known place like Austin and then tech circles, but Chattanooga was going to be the first to do this.
Because the gig itself is not that practical yet. It sounds science fiction-y to talk about, but it's so much faster and so much more bandwidth than anywhere else in the country. It's just hard to comprehend. It's hard to even use.
So if you think about electric power back in the 30s, when it first became available in homes, people didn't really know what to do with it. They knew that you could have light. You know, it would be a sort of a novel, cleaner way to light your home than a kerosene lantern.
But what it signals and what it means, and what we as Chattanoogans have really clung to and really kind of raised up a flag around, is it signals that Chattanooga is the kind of place where we're not going to sit and wait. We're not going to rest on our laurels, at least not this generation. We're going to push forward. And the gig is sort of to be able to say you've got the fastest internet in the world. I'm getting on a plane this afternoon to go out to Silicon Valley, and I'm still having to explain that to people that don't really get it or believe that a city in the deep south is going to be that forward thinking from a planning and an infrastructure point of view. Everyone thinks that's going to be Boston or New York, and they all do good things, but for Chattanooga to have that kind of forward thinking infrastructure, it's just a great thing to be able to point to and rally around.
The fact is that these ultra-high-speed networks are going to be requirements. Now, it is up to the city to say, as a first mover in this space, now that the space is being established outside of the walls of this city, what can we do?
But I know it is, just like fire, that it's an element in our economy that we've just begun to explore. And the future is wide open in what it will accomplish. I just hope I get to live to see a lot of it because I know it's going to be very dramatic.